Hello, friends. Hello, and welcome to From Chaos to Calm Planting Seeds for a Purposeful Life. This is our monthly workshop, and I'm super excited to be spending some time with you tonight as we talk about simplifying, prioritizing, and creating space for what truly matters. I don't know about you, but my life can feel like a constant whirlwind, right? It's work, family, responsibilities, and everything in between. But what if, instead of just trying to keep up, we took a step back and became intentional about how we spend our time and energy? So I want you to think about your life like a garden. The things that you pour your time and your energy into, those are the seeds that you're planting. Some of them are going to flourish. Some might need a little bit more care, and some may not belong in your garden at all. Tonight, we are going to be talking about how to be intentional gardeners of our lives. So let's start off by talking about how to simplify and prioritize. One of the biggest struggles that we face today, I think anyway, is trying to do too much. And my husband will be the first one to tell you, I love to be busy. I don't know what to do with downtime. But I have had to be more intentional about making that space. We often fill our schedules with everything, thinking that we can manage it all, but often all that does is lead to burnout, stress, and feeling like we're constantly behind and not doing enough. But I really want you to consider the concept that less is more. And that, I'm going to be honest, that is like my phrase for 2025. I'm super excited about it. It has been helpful already. But think about it like this: just like in a garden, if you're planting too many seeds in one space, nothing has room to grow properly. And the same is true with where we focus our energy, and we have to be selective with that. So let's talk about how to simplify and prioritize. So, one, you need to identify your must grow priorities, right? So, what are the top 2 to 3 most important things in your life right now? Is that your family? Is that your health? Is it your career? Is it something else? You need to know what those things are, because ultimately you have to kind of balance and like do like a gut check whenever you're saying yes to something. And we'll talk about this too. You have to kind of do that check of, does this align with my priorities, right? So you need to know what your priorities are. Our goals insert can be helpful for that. I'm not going to show that tonight, but it is a helpful insert for that. So if you'd like to see it, just drop goals in the comment and I will be happy to get you the link for it. So I really want you to just jot down on a piece of paper what you think are the top 2 or 3 most important things in your life right now. Now, this is where it comes time to weed out the extras. What are you saying yes to that is actually crowding your space and making it to where things are not going to be able to grow? Maybe that is obligations that no longer serve you. Maybe that is distractions, or maybe even things you do out of guilt rather than purpose. It's important for us to identify those things so that we are more intentional with our yes. And I want you to understand, I preach this all the time in our chaos coordinator community. No is a complete sentence. It is okay to say no, and it is important to have boundaries. But in order to have boundaries, you have to know where to draw them, right? Which goes back to the, you need to know what your priorities are. So anytime you are saying yes to one thing, you are saying no to something else. So you need to make sure that the things you're saying yes to are the right things. Okay, the last tip for simplifying and prioritizing is to create some margin in your schedule. You need that space in your life to rest, reflect, adjust. So if your planner is packed, you're like, if you are looking at your planner and it has something from morning to night and there's just no room to breathe, my friend, you need to take some stuff out, because you need to be able to be flexible with your schedule, but you also need to make sure that you have time to rest, reflect, and adjust. And in fact, you may need to put those things in there intentionally and just put a time block in there, just to make sure that you don't overschedule yourself. Okay. So here's your action here on this topic. Take a look at your planner this week and find one thing, just one, friend, one thing that you can let go of to create some more space for what truly matters. And drop a plant, maybe drop a emoji of your favorite flower in the comments if you are ready to start simplifying. Now, let's talk about using your planner to create clarity and direction. Okay. Again, I'm not going to show you all the things because I am specifically going to share with you the garden insert because it's one I'm about to be using, and I just want to, like, gardening for me is self-care. But anyway, I just wanted to share something different tonight, right? I normally share the monthlies, the weeklies, and I just want to share something different. So, but let's talk about your planner, right? A garden doesn't just happen. You have to plan where things are going to go, when to plant, how to care for each thing. And your life works the same way. Your planner is not just a place to write down those to dos, it really is a tool to help you create clarity and direction. So, here are a few ways to use your planner with purpose, okay? One is to use time blocking for balance. That means that you want to schedule time for work, rest, and personal growth, and don't just squeeze yourself in where there's space. So make that time block for your self-care. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're leaving time in there. Habit tracking. This is an awesome tool for keeping track of those small intentional habits that support your bigger goals. So maybe that's keeping up with your water intake, your movement, your gratitude, or even how much time you spend outside. And then it's also important to leave space in your planner for reflection and adjustment. So each week, take, maybe 5 minutes to kind of review what worked this week, what didn't work, what do you need to tweak, because growth is not about perfection. It really is about making progress. And I want you guys to make progress in your planning system. So here's your action for this particular category, right? Is to flip to this week in your planner, write down one habit you want to nurture this month. So go ahead and do that. Take just a second to do that. And then we are going to do one more thing before I switch over to sharing the garden insert. But I want to talk about how small intentional habits can really lead to big impact. Just like a garden doesn't grow overnight, adding all these things into your life, like, just doesn't, it's not like you can just say, I want to add in all these things and they just magically happen, right? You have to nourish them, you have to water them, right? It's that daily care, the watering, the pulling the weeds, making adjustments as you need it, that creates that flourishing space. And life works the same way as the garden. By making those small intentional choices with how you spend your time, the habits you're nurturing, the things you prioritize, those are all going to lead to some big results. So let's talk about a few small habits that can lead to that big impact. So, starting your day with 5 minutes of planning or reflection. I love to just take a peek at my planner at the beginning of the day and be like, oh, what in the world am I supposed to be doing today? Because it brings it back to my mind. It helps me to give me that focus for what it is I need to accomplish. And it allows me to be like, oh, I really need to be like, I've got a lot to get done. I've got to be on it, right? I need to be doing the things that I'm supposed to do. Or sometimes I have a little bit more flexibility and I can be like, oh, I've only got about 20 minutes worth of work to do, blah, blah, blah. And, then I have a little more downtime, right? And I'm able to do some other things. Now, I will also add, I'm not talking about my day job, okay? That is definitely an 8-hour day job. But anyway, but start your day with those 5 minutes of planning or reflection. Whenever you're doing that, consider taking one thing off of your plate instead of piling on more. I think that we feel like this peer pressure to do all the things. And friend, I just want to give you the permission to take something off of your plate, because you need to. Like, we cannot do everything. You just need to understand what your priorities are, and make sure that the things you're working on are in alignment with that. And I also want to tell you, the only one who can tell you if your priorities are out of whack is yourself. So we'll go with that. All right. Another small habit that you can implement is setting a clear end of time for work so that you have personal time. For my day job, I work 7 to 3:30. I'm pretty consistent with that, and I tend to stick to it unless there is an emergency at work. Obviously, I have flexibility and I make things happen, right? But as a general rule, 7 to 3:30 is my work schedule, and that means that I know when my personal life starts or when I have time to do more of my Tula 12 work, that sort of thing. But knowing when that work time ends is super important. And that can also be something that if you use a time blocking, you're going to block out that as well. Okay. And then the last small habit for you today is practicing self-care that actually restores you, not just what feels like a task. And again, everybody's going to have a different idea of what self-care is. Just before I got on here to make this video for you, I just took a shower. But I spent the last hour and a half outside shoveling and spreading mulch. And it wasn't because it was a chore. It was because I knew it's been a rough week at work. It's been very stressful. I knew that I needed to unplug. I needed to go out. I needed to do something with my hands. I needed to be active. And I knew that that was going to be a stress relief for me, not just a chore. So find something that is restorative to you. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like the typical, take a hot bath, read a book, whatever. Maybe that isn't self-care to you. So figure out what that is and take time for it. So I want you to think about what is one small habit that you can plant this month, and maybe just tell us in the comments what that is. All right, friends, give me just 1 second. We're going to switch over. I'm going to share with you our gardening insert. Okay, so for me, one of the things that really helps me to step away from the chaos and recharge is gardening. That's working out in my yard, working in the garden. Now, I'm also going to say I'm not necessarily the best gardener. I don't really have a green thumb, but I try really hard. So by stepping outside, getting my hands in the dirt and focusing on something real that isn't a screen, there's no notifications, it really just helps to clear my mind in a way that there's just not much else that can do that. So that is why I love our gardening insert. It's a way to bring that grounding energy into my planning routine. So I'm going to share with you how I've used it in the past. Now, I just ordered a new set in the extra large. This is a medium. But I just ordered it for this next year. My husband and I are going to actually sit down and plan our garden together, which is also, that's kind of cool to be able to do it with someone else. So let's just walk through how I've used this in the past. You can see here I added some decoration to it. You can choose what the front cover of your inserts look like. If you've never seen our planners before, our inserts are basically like little notebooks. And they just slide into the cover. So they literally, and this is a folder, but they just slide in. Okay, so there's 4 bands and they just slide in, and that's how they're held in. So let's walk through the garden insert. So the first step, you have a section here for garden ideas and inspiration. So this is kind of like our storyteller insert. So this gives you a place to actually kind of, take some of that inspo that you might find on Pinterest or on Facebook, and maybe print some things out, put some ideas of what it is that you're wanting in your garden, and take some notes about things like that. I did not do that because that's just not how my type A brain works, but there is space for that. Then you have a place to create a garden budget and a garden shopping list. I don't need all these things again this year, but if you want to set a budget, clearly I did not. You can do that, and then you can also create your shopping list and check things off as you've gotten them. Then there is a place for you to create a seed inventory where you're actually tracking all the different seeds that you have, where you got them from, when you got them, and how many you have. A place to track any perennials that you have planted. So those are the ones that are going to come back year after year, and a place for you to make notes about them. So maybe you have some bulbs that you need to dig up at a certain time of year, that sort of thing. You can make those sorts of notes here. Then you have a place for any annuals that you have planted, a wish list of things that you want for your garden. And then we have seed and plant profile. So I did do some of this whenever I was doing my garden. So I had geraniums and mint julep and some basil. So I was making notes about like where I got them, where I planted them, anything like what kind of spacing they might need, ideas for what I was wanting to use them for, that sort of thing. So there you have a few pages for that. And then this was where I had a lot of fun. You can map out your garden. And this one, I was mapping out our front garden, which is more bulbs. So like I did a bunch of gardenias. I did dahlias, calla lilies, some gladiolas, some crocus. I did a mandevilla, except I killed those, so those are no longer there. I did some lilies. So I created a whole, this was like where I planted the bulbs. So I mapped it out and then I actually planted them after that. So that was really fun. Now this was our vegetable garden. We have 6 raised beds, and then we have some bushes, and then we have 2 smaller raised beds in the very back. So this one, these 2 get a lot of weeds in them. So I've just made notes about this. I do need to update it because this bed here is now full of zinnias. They should come back because I let them go to seed. But this basically gave me, I was able to keep up with where I planted things, which is important whenever you are going to, come back and garden again the next year. You need to be careful about planting the same thing in the same space. So this was my garden layout that I drew. And then you have a place, and I'm gonna try my hardest to do this with DJ this year, but you can create a weekly task list. So morning and evening routines, basically, you're able to create a garden routine. You have a monthly task list of like when you need to do certain things on a monthly level. Maybe that's, fertilizing, weeding, bed prep, that sort of thing. But also maybe, what is the right time of year to plant certain things. So this is a good place for you to put all of those. Then you have seasonal task lists. So spring, summer, fall, and winter. And then a soil log, which we need to actually send off some soil samples this year. So we'll probably use that. A pest log. So if you want to keep up with what pests you had. And then you have a fertilizer log, and then harvest tracker. So this is where you can keep up with how much produce you actually produced. And then any additional garden notes. So I was making notes about how to propagate some succulents. So that's what I was doing here. So that is the garden insert. But I had a lot of fun using this. I'm excited to do it with DJ. The other thing I like to have that goes with it is a monthly insert, because with that you can, make notes of when to plant the different plants. You can take notes about like how much rain you got, what did you plant that day. Like here I wrote that there was a frost warning, so that meant that I needed to go cover things, all that sort of thing. You can keep up with that, and then you can look back on that year after year and either use that as a guideline or make adjustments. So it's really important to consider things like that as well. So those are the inserts that I like to use for gardening, is the garden plans and a monthly insert. But as it relates to back to our topic of making time for things that are important, I make time for gardening when it comes time. Like I did actually include mulch in my weekly plans this week. Let me see if I can find it super quick. I did include that in my planner this week to make sure that I made time to mulch. It was on Tuesday, although DJ did the mulching on Tuesday, but here it is again on Thursday, and I did do this mulching. So it's important sometimes to make sure that you are putting the self-care items in your planner. And I want you to remember, self-care is not selfish. It really is necessary for growth. So whether that is gardening, journaling, or something else that fills your cup, make sure you're planting time for you. And the goal is not to have a perfect color-coded life. It is to create a life that feels intentional, fulfilling, and is in alignment with what truly matters. So your challenge this week, my friend, is to simplify by letting go of one unnecessary obligation. Use your planner with purpose, set those habits, reflect, and make space for growth. You can see I had a water tracker here on Monday, and then I just lost it. I didn't do it again after that. But use your planner with purpose. Plant a habit that is going to bring long-term impact. And go ahead, tell me in the comments before we hop off, what is one seed you're planting this month to move from chaos to calm? Let's grow together, my friend. I hope that you had a fun time with me tonight, and I look forward to hanging out with you guys in our community. Have a great one.